This looks so surreal. It looks like something straight from a movie, but you're looking at actual footage of the only F5 tornado to ever hit the country of Canada, which, fun fact, is the second most tornado-prone country in the world. This crazy 2007 twister was so weird on so many levels, it almost defies belief. For starters, it stands as one of the thinnest F5 tornadoes in recorded history, with a width of only about 150 yards. For comparison, most tornadoes with that kind of catastrophic power look like monstrous wedges, dark and wide, consuming everything on the horizon. This one was different. It was so slender that experts initially argued about whether to rate the funnel as an F4 or an F5. Its size was completely deceptive, masking the sheer violence it was capable of. But its strange appearance was just the beginning. Unlike typical tornadoes that move in a fairly straight or gently curving line, this one went rogue. Its path was a chaotic scribble on the landscape. It performed 3 full loops and a series of sharp, unpredictable turns. It even doubled back on its own path, hitting some of the same homes twice, as if with malicious intent. It was a storm with no clear direction, an atmospheric predator that seemed to be hunting rather than just moving through. And then there was its speed. Or rather, its lack of it. The tornado crept along at a sluggish pace of only 10 miles per hour. A professional marathon runner could have outpaced it. This slow crawl meant that it lingered over its targets, giving witnesses a terrifyingly long time to observe its power. It wasn't a fleeting disaster that struck and vanished, it was a slow, grinding force of nature that took its time. Yet, here is where the story turns from just strange to truly miraculous. Despite its F5 rating, a classification reserved for the most violent storms on the planet, it achieved the impossible. It obliterated houses in seconds, tossing vehicles around like toys and scrubbing entire, well-built structures clean from their foundations. The raw power was undeniable. But in the midst of this absolute destruction, not a single person was injured or killed. You could say this was the most Canadian way an F5 tornado could have happened. Powerful, chaotic, but somehow polite enough to leave everyone unharmed. These details are just the tip of the iceberg. The story of the 2007 Ellie Twister is a deep dive into a meteorological paradox, a storm that broke all the rules. And as this story unfolds, the details are only going to get more unbelievable. Friday, June 22, 2007, started like any typical summer day for the locals in Ellie. It was bright, humid, the kind of sticky heat where you step outside and instantly feel the air clinging to you. As the day went on and the sun began its slow descent, however, things took a turn. The skies began to darken, the clouds thickened, and an uneasy stillness settled over the prairie. To the average person, it just looked like a regular summer storm was brewing. But what was actually happening in the atmosphere was the creation of a meteorological cocktail for disaster. The soaring temperatures and high humidity had created a thick, soupy air mass, a loaded atmosphere just waiting for a trigger. That trigger came from multiple directions. A fast-moving jet stream blew in from the west, providing the wind shear necessary to make storms rotate. At the surface, a low-pressure system acted like a giant vacuum, pulling all that warm, moist air upward. A warm front to the north funneled in even more humidity, while a cold front to the west helped shove everything skyward. The wild card was a lake breeze boundary, a collision zone between cool lake air and the unstable land air. It had all the ingredients for a historic tornado. But for hours, it was all held in check by a weather cap, a layer of warm, dry air acting like a lid on a boiling pot, stopping storms from forming too early. Usually, a cap keeps things under control. But if something manages to break through, storms can explode upwards in minutes. And that's exactly what happened. By 5 p.m., the cap broke. Storms began to erupt across the region. 40 minutes later, 2 powerful supercells had formed just northwest of Ellie, with a third popping up to the southwest. For the next half hour, the sky put on a nervous, teasing display. Small, thin funnels began to dip down from the cloud base and pull back up, briefly touching the ground like a yo-yo before retracting. It was a prelude to the main event. Then, at 6:25 p.m., a long, roping funnel extended from a wall cloud and made solid, undeniable contact with the earth. This time, it was the real deal. The tornado made its official touchdown just north of the Trans-Canada Highway. There was no rain wall to hide it, no dramatic lightning show. The funnel was completely visible right from the start, clear, rope-like, and oddly peaceful. For storm chasers who were on the scene, the moment was eerily calm. They could still hear birds chirping and mosquitoes buzzing. The low rumbles of thunder in the background were the only hint of the power being unleashed. For the first few moments of its life, the most violent tornado in Canadian history was a silent, almost graceful spectacle against the dark sky. But that deceptive peace was about to shatter. After touching down, the tornado immediately began to break the rules. It moved southeast, a major red flag, as most tornadoes in North America move from southwest to northeast. This one was doing the exact opposite. And it didn't just go in a straight line. Just before crossing the highway, it veered east, briefly tracking parallel to the road before taking a sudden, hard turn to the south. At this stage, it was rated around F1 intensity, but that was already enough to find its first victim, a semi-truck, which it tossed aside like a toy. The driver, though surely traumatized, was unharmed. After crossing the highway, the tornado zigzagged again, this time into the town's flour mill, a key local business. You would think it would just continue on its path, but this is where its behavior went from unusual to completely bizarre. The tornado made its first full loop, circling counterclockwise and hitting the flour mill a second time from a different direction. By now, it had strengthened to F2 intensity. Walls were being blasted inward. Other semi-trucks in the lot were being thrown around like Hot Wheels cars. Residents who witnessed it described the sound not as a freight train, but as a low, growling roar, like a waterfall cranked to its maximum possible volume. Still zigzagging, the tornado continued its strange journey south. It briefly weakened, but at the same time, its width tripled. Moments later, it curved east again, but not in a clean arc. It bent slightly north and slammed directly into the southwest edge of the residential part of Elie. Just before impact, it intensified explosively. This is when the twister unleashed its maximum fury. It struck a cluster of 4 homes on the town's edge. And it didn't just hit them once. In a terrifying display, it made a scribble-like loop over the same small area, tormenting the same spot for about 4 minutes. Some of these homes were new, well-built, and anchored to their foundations, but it didn't matter. They were completely shredded. All that was left was a pile of rubble and a bare foundation slab. Trees were stripped of their bark. Cars were crushed flat or tossed hundreds of feet away, with one landing on a neighbor's rooftop. After delivering this devastating blow, the tornado curved into another counterclockwise loop in an open field, drifted southwest, and finally, after nearly 40 minutes of erratic movement, it dissipated, vanishing as strangely as it had appeared. The next day, officials began the difficult process of surveying the damage. The first team rolled into Elie and, after inspecting the flour mill and the obliterated homes, they landed on a preliminary rating of F4. Severe, but not historic. Something felt off, though. The way one of the homes was wiped clean off its foundation hinted at greater power. But there was a dilemma. The tornado had moved incredibly slowly. Was it really an F5, or did it just linger for so long that it ground the houses down little by little? The game changed when a flood of videos and photos poured in from storm chasers and residents. Using this new evidence, investigators began triangulating GPS landmarks and camera angles. For the first time, they saw the tornado's wild, looping path. And they made a crucial discovery about those homes it ripped from their foundations. They weren't battered for minutes on end. Video analysis proved each one was struck for less than 30 seconds. That's all it took for well-built houses to be reduced to splinters. The slow grind theory was shattered. This thing had unimaginable power. With all the evidence stacked, the video proof, the structural analysis, and the sheer scale of the destruction, the verdict was in. The rating was officially upgraded. The Ellie tornado was an F5, the first and only one in Canadian history. It looks like something from a Hollywood movie, but it's terrifyingly real. In 2007, the tiny town of Ellie, Manitoba, was struck by the first and only F5 tornado in Canadian history. But this was no ordinary twister. It was an anomaly of nature that broke all the rules. Join us as we deconstruct this bizarre meteorological event, a super tornado so thin it deceived experts, so slow a person could outrun it, and so chaotic it looped back to strike the same houses twice. We'll dive into the perfect storm of atmospheric conditions that spawned this monster and follow its erratic, 40-minute path of destruction. Most incredibly, we'll explore the miracle at the heart of the chaos. Despite leveling homes and tossing semi-trucks like toys, not a single person was harmed. How is that possible? Discover the full, unbelievable story of the Ellie F5, a tornado as powerful as it was polite. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of our next deep dive into incredible true stories. Backhand index pointing down, what did you find most unbelievable about this tornado? Let us know in the comments below.